Love Your Kitchen, Designing the Heart of the Home, proudly sponsored by Blum, the podcast where we explore the art of crafting your dream kitchen. I'm your host, Faye Newman, a freelance kitchen designer with a passion for creating spaces that truly reflect the heart of the home. You don't buy a kitchen every day to actually know, price-wise, what the overall figure would be. I've got, 15, 20 grand, but does that include your fitting? Does that include your flooring? Does that include, all of the other elements that are involved?
That was a really nice answer. I'm going to be bad cop, okay? Good cop,
Yeah.
bad cop. Don't buy on impulse.
This is a pretty good time to be doing things because the Bank of England went on a pretty steep curve where it was escalating. Well, the good news is it started coming back down again. I don't think there's been a better time to do this.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Love Your Kitchen podcast. As ever, thank you very much for joining me. So today I've had the most amazing conversations with lots of industry experts, including myself, talking about all things kitchen design on the Kitchen Theatre stand, which is where I'm stood for Grand Designs Live 2025 at the NEC. So we've covered lots of topics, but one of the topics that was really pinnacle and I wanted to share with you guys is the talk about budget versus dream. So naturally, when I talk about anything money related on the show, it's a popular topic. I think regardless of how big a space you've got to work with, we all want to save money. We're all very savvy, smart buyers now. So this is a topic that I feel will be really beneficial for you guys just to see from, different experts. So we've got Tom, for instance, who comes from a building background, and he's got a wealth of knowledge on all things to do with building and construction. And then you've got myself and Luke, who are both kitchen designers, and we can come at it from a place of where can you save money in terms, of your actual kitchen design and layout, and also talking you through sort of how important the transparency and the communication is, throughout the process. I think I've mentioned this on the show so many times. It's so important for you to build a team around you that you trust, you feel comfortable with, to be transparent, and equally they're being transparent with you. So this episode will be a live talk about that topic today. I hope you enjoy.
So this talk is specifically about budget versus dream. So finding a balance in that kitchen or even home improvement renovation project. So before we kick things off, who am I and why should you listen to me and why am I stood here? My name is Luke Wedgbury and I am a kitchen designer. I own 2 retail kitchen outlets, 2 showrooms based in Leicestershire in the Midlands. I'm also a board member for a very boring trade association. So all of these retailers all across the UK, they have to be looked after by a trade association. I'm a board member for that. And those kitchen designers you see that have the big award and the big trophy, I'm the judge for that. I get to go all over the country and judge people. I judge your work.
No, you do.
I judge your work. So I'm really bad at intros. So I'm going to let these guys introduce themselves.
Should I go first?
Go.
Okay, amazing. So I'm Faye Newman. I'm a founder of an independent kitchen and bedroom business called Faye Newman Design. I know, really original. I provide unbiased advice to you guys to make sure that you're making the right decisions, you're spending your money in the right places, but also to make sure that you've got the perfect design for your kitchen space at home. I also am the host of a podcast called Love Your Kitchen, which is why we've got the camera here today. Dan is filming a few bits for us, which is amazing. So that's me.
Cool. I'm Tom McSherry and I'm the National Business Development Manager for BuildStore. We're a large independent mortgage specialist, financing self-builds, renovations, extensions. And we have been for 25 years and 30,000 plus projects. And I'm also a renovator and a self-builder. So I'm I've been through with the journey that you're about to embark on.
Brilliant. Yeah, there's some boxes ticked there, guys. I won't be able to add much to this. It's all on you. It'll be very conversational. So we talked about budget versus dream. So kitchens, specifically, I suppose, are often described as the heart of the home. We all know that. But also, it's one of the biggest investments you're going to make in your home. It's one of the biggest. It's definitely up there with a car purchase or something like that. So my question to you guys is, why do you think people are willing to stretch so far for the kitchen? Why is that? Faye, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. I think for me, and what I find from clients is, kitchens just are so much more now than just a kitchen. It's a place to not only cook, of course you've got to clean up as well, which is really annoying, but it's a place to do your homework, it's a place to relax, like having, a section, potentially to, watch telly, like that sort of thing. There's so many different elements involved in the kitchen now. So I think that is why, it's the highly functional, highly trafficked room. So that is why everybody's willing to invest a little bit more to make sure they're getting quality materials, quality appliances, and they're building a design that just is, is your dream kitchen, essentially. So that would be my take on that as to why clients are willing to spend that little bit more. And also, unfortunately, all the tech involved does creep up. So, yeah, I would say that's why.
It's quite aspirational now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Tom, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's interesting. My self-build that we built a lot of years ago, because we kept having more and more children, it was a real grand design scenario. It was like our life was being filmed.
How many did you end up with?
4. So the dining room became a bedroom. The oldest one left. Became another one. The dining room went back to a bedroom. So eventually, when we got the 2 oldest ones away, we had the ability to remodel the house, and that was all about the kitchen.
Yeah, okay.
So we could decompartmentalize and create this stunning open plan living that we couldn't initially. We simply couldn't. But the change that it's made to not just our house, but how we spend our time in the house has been absolutely sensational.
Yeah.
Transformed the whole back of the house.
Yeah. So it's a big thing.
Yeah.
It's a big thing. So when you sit down with clients, Faye, do you find that their dream vision or their budget drives the conversation?
It's a good question. I think it depends on the client or the person. I think it depends on their approach. I think sometimes, especially when I was working in showrooms and not working for myself, I think it's quite difficult for homeowners to want to deliver that information to us. And you probably think the same with this. Like sometimes, you want to keep that budget sort of, not hidden, but you want to hold it back a bit just to make sure that you're not getting ripped off and to make sure that, you're in a trusted environment. So it is dependent on on the client and sort of if they're willing to sort of give you, that information from there. And then it's just sort of, there's just ways that obviously your designer can help you get a more maybe, look at ways to potentially save in areas that you might not need and that sort of thing. So I hope that's answered your question.
No, it does. It answers from a designer's perspective perfectly. So Tom, in regards to when people come to you and they're talking about extensions or self-builds or even new builds, do you find that they're kind of talking about their dream or are they talking about the money?
It changes from client to client.
Yeah.
Some of them will start with an architect and come up with something incredible to discover that they simply can't afford to do it.
Yeah.
Because they started with dreams and aspirations rather than budget. Being the finance person and being risk averse, and probably being a bit of a miserable Scotsman, if the truth be known, I always focus on budget, because if you know exactly what you've got and understand the potential, what you don't know what you don't know. Yeah. Is there a reality? People think if I want to do some major refurbishment of my home, the high street bank simply allows you to borrow up to the current value of the house. So if you're sitting with a house valued at 300,000 with a 270,000 pound mortgage on it, there's very little you can do. Or is there? Because the renovation products and the renovation lenders allow you to borrow up to the end value of the project when it's finished, which is actually more than the value of the house. What that does is unlock the ability for you to work with designers and specialists to probably come up with something far more inspirational than you actually thought perhaps you could budget.
Yeah, and I think the word you've ended on there, budget, is in our sector, from a kitchen design perspective, can sometimes be a bit of an awkward word, a bit of a dirty word in the sense of what's the budget. And when clients get asked what's the budget, sometimes there's a bit of a wall that goes up and they think, well, if I give you my budget, you're going to design it right the way up to the top. And honestly, so I've got a team of 6 designers that work across our showrooms. None of them do that. It's all about realistic expectation versus reality. You come into one of our showrooms and say, this is what I'd like. I want it in that finish. I want that marble worktop and those appliances. And we say, before we do the design work, are you happy to be open and honest about your budget? And they go, no. I'm not talking about the budget. And then we say, well, we can't design it. I cannot design a space without knowing what your budget is.
Yeah.
Because if you say to me, well, the budget for this kitchen here is £10,000, I go, let's work with £10,000 and see where it gets us, see how far it gets us. Or you could say, for the same space, you could say, well, my budget's £20,000. And then we go, okay, that's a healthy budget. We can design that, and it might come out at 18. But it won't go all the way to the top, but it gives us an idea of where you're at. Yeah. And we're very honest as designers, and even within finance, we're very honest when we say, okay, your budget was £15,000, for an example. We've done our best, it's 16,500. That's the end quote. And then it's up to you to decide whether it's worth that stretch. No one's here to kind of rob you. That's my point, really. It's very important to be open and honest about your budget, because it will cut out all of the time wasted exercises and lots of quotes and then getting in prices, which actually you could never afford. It's better just to be open and honest straight away.
Yeah.
Tom, so from a finance perspective, what are the most common pitfalls that people face when trying to set a realistic budget for a project?
Yeah, I think it's understanding where to look, speaking to the right advisors and the right specialists. The reality is you may be doing it from savings. That's potentially your budget. Understanding if you need to raise finance, where to go and do that. And working with a reputable specialist, they might be looking at your existing lender. Saying to your current lender, you've got enough equity, we'd just like to raise a bit more because we're going to improve the property. That might just be a replacement kitchen, an upgrade, putting something a bit glamorous in, really special. If you're then talking about going into a more detailed or a greater level of renovation that's including extensions, you're talking about a construction project. That is really dealing with specialist funding then. Because the likelihood is, the pitfall is, you're going to invalidate your buildings and contents insurance.
Yeah.
Because you're just about to turn your house into a building site. So your current lender, have you asked permission to extend the property? Are you allowed to? Get the planning permission in place. But what you might be doing is replacing the current lender with a lender who does understand it's a construction project. You put an appropriate insurance in place during the phase of construction and get the money provided to you in stages. It's getting the cash flows wrong, the big one.
Yeah.
Thinking I've got enough money, not knowing when the money's going to arrive. That's more at that larger scale renovation extension. Some products only give you the money after the work's done, and then when the valuer comes out and revalues it, if it goes up in value, you get money. If it doesn't go up in value, you don't. Well, when does it go up in value? Mm-hmm. But there are products that have got guaranteed payments that right at the beginning, you know exactly what you're getting, when you're getting it, and there's ones that can provide you the money before the stage even starts. So if you've got a lead payment time for a manufacturer, the money's in your bank account to pay it. So it's actually not dealing, I would think, with a specialist that has the ability to look across the spectrum of delivery of various project types.
Yeah. It's a great point, and I just picked up on something you said. Who here knew, just be honest, because I'll raise my hand as well, who here knew that when you started a building project on your home, whether it be an extension, that you had to let your insurance company know? Who knew that? 2 people, 3 people. Guys, it's really important. If you started any kind of construction project on your home, you just have to let them know. They're going to say it's okay, right? They're going to go, thanks for letting us know. They're going to need a few details. Most of them are. But you've got to let them know, because if something goes wrong, they say, you didn't tell us.
Depends on the level of work. If it's an internal refit, changing the kitchen, it's not that big an issue for them. But the minute you start to build extensions and start going wrap around, that's into major construction. They will not be happy.
No.
What you do is you replace it with a product called site insurance that insures it during the construction phase. It gives you public liability, employer liability. The minute it's finished again, then you're back to buildings and contents. It's a finished home. It's
a very simple process.
Yeah.
It's a really, really good tip. Faye, you speak to lots of homeowners through your podcast. We're live. What's the biggest misconceptions when people have about their dream? When I say to you, what's the biggest misconception people have about the cost of their kitchen? What would you say?
I think it's. I was just sort of, thinking about this from from your perspective. Everybody's sort of watching. I think it's really hard when because you don't buy a kitchen every day to actually know price-wise, what the overall figure would be, because you'd come to me, or you'd come to like both of us, and you'd say, okay, I've got 15, 20 grand, but does that include your fitting? Does that include your flooring? Does that include all of the other elements that are involved, regardless of whether you're doing a extension, even if you're just doing a rip out refit? There's so many entities involved, which is what you mentioned about the other sort of elements creeping on with the service side of things. And I think it's really important to make sure you're getting your itemised quotations from both your supplier but also your tradespeople, just so you know everything that's included within that. So I'd probably say that's quite a difficult position sometimes for clients to be in. And in regards to sort of like the misconception, I think the way that I usually sort of handle this part with a client is, of course, the transparency, which we mentioned before, but also, running through, again, just the overall function and the specification for what you're looking for. And then, finding a supplier or a route to go down that, suits where you're at with it. It's like focusing on the design, almost putting in your wish list. Obviously, if you're putting in, 5 coffee machines, 5 ovens, whatever, it's going to get completely out of hand. But equally, if you're just really open with your wish list before, your non-negotiables, and then you can start to bring it back from there because your worst case scenario.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on TikTok and social media? Because for us as a business across the 2 showrooms, it's a bit of a nightmare, because clients will come to us and say, Look, there's a TikTok here that said this. We'll use this example. There's a TikTok that said this was a £20,000 kitchen. So our budget's £20,000. And we go, well, actually, they're correct. The kitchen was £20,000. But it cost them £2,500 to get it fitted. It cost them £1,000 to have the plumbing and electrics done. The flooring was £2,000, and the decorating was £500 after. So have you got £26,000 or have you got 20? And they go, oh, right, okay, I didn't realise that. Yeah. There's loads of false information on social media, which as a retailer and designers, we really struggle with. And it's about reality versus expectation. So it's a tricky one. Tom, if I said to you, which is the best way to finance any kind of home improvements, would you say that it's a dead easy decision in the sense of I should go and get and lend against my home, or should I go and get a private loan?
There are no 2 projects will be the same. No, and that's where taking independent advice is really important. It might be unsecured lending, personal loan, the same as you would when you buy a car. You may get terms from the kitchen manufacturer that are attractive at a certain time. You may be asking your existing lender for a top-up. So they give you what they call a further advance. You have an ability to do a second charge with another lender, second rank, or in the more significant level of renovations, the likelihood is you're going to be specialist lending. But that marketplace is all building societies. I suppose the clue's in the name, building societies. When we get to that larger scale, they are very comfortable and provide incredible flexibility for you. Because the first thing they do is they change it to interest only during construction. You only pay for what you're taking at each stage. You can actually get the money, as I said, at the beginning of each stage, so creating positive cash flow that helps your tradespeople. As you said, if it's a bigger job, you've got plumbing, electrics, perhaps reflooring, foundations, extensions. To have the ability to pay people on time and regularly takes so much stress out of the project. But there's a spectrum of options, and depending on the size and scale of what you're planning to do, will pigeonhole you into the right selection. Dealing with a specialist, though, is probably the key.
Yeah. There's so many options now, isn't there?
Yeah.
It's not what it used to be, maybe going back as far as 10, 15 years ago. It was quite black and white, but now flexibility around
Product
financing.
Design. It's excellent.
So absolutely, if you are thinking of it, specialist advice is the way to go.
And actually, one final point on it. There are lots of properties across the UK sitting in estate agents' windows for cash buyers only, because it doesn't have a kitchen in it. So it's not mortgageable in the high street. The reality is, it is mortgageable. Those renovation products allow you to get 95% of the money to buy the property and 95% of the money to do the works. So even as first-time buyers, and we're trying on a housing ladder, there's an opportunity for you to go on the housing ladder and remodel the house inside and get that great kitchen in it as part of a normal house buying process.
Yeah, good advice. Faye, so how do you advise clients? I suppose this is a question for both of you, really. How do you advise them to separate what we call in the design world as the must-haves or the nice to haves without feeling too much compromise? Faye, I'll let you go first.
I think the first, it's like how many people you've got using the space. I think that's like a good place to start. Like understanding the reasons as to why you're renovating. Like really getting to grips with what's not working for you in your current space, what's annoying you. Like, is it a case of you might have laminate worktops and you're like, no, my absolute must is I need to go for solid surfaces because you like the look of them, or from a practicality perspective, they're not going to, pop or, near your sort of your sink section, things like that. There might be something at the moment that you're thinking, I absolutely need that in my kitchen. And I think that's really important for us as designers to know that, because then obviously we can help manage the situation. So once you've gone past your fundamentals of what you need for your kitchen, like your ovens, like your hob, for instance, you might not need to go for a fancy venting hob. So the money saved on that could then go towards your solid surfaces. So I think it's really interesting that it's all tailored to each client. I think and you probably find that the same when you're...
We do. We have a bit of a process within our sales where we have an urgent, important, and nice to have. And your urgents are your basics.
Yeah.
You've got to have a sink. You've got to have a hob, you've got to have an oven, then you've got your important. What's important? Well, do you know what? It's important I have quartz.
Yeah.
Okay, that's important. Brilliant. What's nice to have? Well, I'd love to have a cooker.
Yeah.
Great. But can you afford the cooker tap? Is it there? So breaking that down, having that list of urgent, important, and nice to have really helps when you're prioritising things on a kitchen budget.
Something to note as well is if dependent on times of years and things, but especially with appliances, you can get certain packages through your retailers, can't you? So you can get cash back from that. So say, for instance, you wanted a venting hob, but you're concerned about the uplifting costs because obviously there's two appliances in one where you've got your hob and then your extraction. The extra £500, £600 that you're getting back from that cash back, you can then put that to your, maybe your middle column, not your essentials, but equally, your nice to haves.
It's toying with the three things.
And that's where sort of when you're working with a design that could sort of help you with those, to and fro in between those two subjects it's a fine line, I would say. Like,
yeah, but it's
we
nice.
we go over.
Yeah, it's nice and it's fascinating because normally when we sit down with clients, it's a Mr. and Mrs. and we sit down and they have very different opinions on what's urgent and what's important and what's nice to have. Very different opinions. So it's a good exercise. Tom, do you have the same kind of conversation with clients when they're talking about finances for extensions, where I'm going to have a single story or a two-story, and what's urgent, what's nice to have?
It's budget for us.
Budget.
It's financials and budget is the clear. What can we get you to so you can then design and specify, a 100 square metre house you could build for 200,000, or you could spend 400,000 on it. The difference being what's inside, what you're specifying. It's interesting because you talk about a client, and as Anne and I went through this journey, this remodelling and design of a kitchen, there were two clients. Because what me, who does the cooking, seen as important, and what Anne seen as important, were two very different things. Yeah. And something that's became really important to Anne is a warming tray, which wasn't even on my radar.
Yeah.
She won't have food served on a cold plate now, unless it's a salad. So, there was two different views to what was right. And there's that compromise eventually where Anne got exactly what she wanted.
Of course. How it always ends up. So, in regards to value for money, which is, when we talk about budget, that's kind of, you want to feel like whatever you've spent out, you're going to get the right value for money. So, Faye, in regards to value for money, where do you think homeowners get the best value for money? Is it in the layout, the materials, the appliance, or is it something else?
I think, again, it depends on the individual. I mean, for me, my biggest sort of, the main factor would be to make sure that the quality of the materials are there from a furniture perspective. To me, they're the building blocks of your kitchen. They're what's holding up, the worktops. They're the main part that you're going to invest in. So making sure that you've got whatever's behind the doors. Of course, the doors have to look lovely and they've got to be painted beautiful colours, but you want to make sure it's not going to fall apart after the honeymoon phase. A couple of years in, you don't want your hinges dropping, you don't want your drawer, a drawer face, just coming off from the drawer, a few years on or whatever. You want to make sure that you've got the quality there. But equally then, I speak to other clients and they just want it to look good. And that's fine too, like, it's your kitchen, but it's about understanding sort of what your values are and how you want to use, or the investment that you want. When you look at your kitchen and you think, okay, when I go forward in 5 weeks' time, maybe, when I get my beautiful new kitchen, what is it that you want it to be? Like, what do you want it to look like? What do you want it to feel like? How do you want to feel within that space? And whatever that is will drive sort of the value part of it. And that's normally how I identify that with clients.
Yeah, that's a great way to do it. Tom, in regards to value for money from a finance perspective, I'm constantly worried about the correct rates with all kind of bits and pieces. So is there anything there that you can kind of offer to that?
Yeah, this is a pretty good time to be doing things, because the Bank of England went on a pretty steep curve where it was escalating. Seemed every time the committee met, it was going up another 1/4 or 0.5%. Well, the good news is it started coming back down again. The lenders who do the more significant level of work, the building societies that I spoke about, I don't think there's been a better time to do this, because if I go back 3 years, the residential market was at 1%, and the renovation mortgage, the more significant level, that stage payment level, was up 5.5%.
Okay.
So the Bank of England's been rising, and we're now maybe 4.25% as the norm, whereas the renovation mortgages haven't really been increasing by that much, because they don't track the Bank of England base rate. Building societies offer it off swap rates.
Interesting.
So they're at 5.3 to 6% now. But remember, it's interest only during the work. And then you go back to a brand new product when it's finished. So the flexibility and the products now are far, far better and more aligned to residential. And the flexibility of interest only, I think, is really helpful for that more significant level of work.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Just the specialist view on that is fascinating. So, are there any areas where it's worth investing more upfront? As you know, because they'll stand the test of time, versus areas where you can have clever cost-saving things. Are there any areas in the kitchen where you think, you know what, it's worth doing that now?
Good question. Do you mean like in their existing space or when they're in their new kitchen?
I mean in the new. If someone's having a new kitchen design done and they are thinking about budget versus reality, are there any elements of that space where you would say, do you know what, I know the budget's tight, but I'd recommend you do this now? I know what you're going to say. Go on.
Cooker tap. I've managed to actually convince my parents in the audience about this. We've finally got them a cooker tap in there. Well, they've had their kitchen for like 5-6 years now. But I think for me, like, efficiency is key. And I think, the cooker tap, and it retails, obviously it is an investment, but I do think you do save on the energy perspective. Like, you must think this because it's so economical when it runs. You actually saving money overall from that perspective. So even though it's more of an investment initially, the actual running cost of it is fairly cheap. Again, the uplift from laminate to solid work surfaces would always be, quite a great practical choice. But of course, the price difference is, quite big, or can be quite significant. And again, just going back to the actual furniture side of it as well. Maybe it's a case of, and I always say this with clients, if we're looking at going for really accessible storage, and usually when you say the word accessible, it means that it's pricey, because you've got your drawers, you've got your pull-outs, you've got everything happening behind the cabinetry to help you from a functional perspective. Maybe it's a case of, if you do want, say, an extra larder cabinet added on, and I've done this and advised this with clients before as they're sort of going through the whole build, is, put that as an add-on afterwards. You'll have a relationship with that fitter and that kitchen supplier. You don't necessarily have to get everything done all in one go. The only elements that you'd need to consider is if you obviously put in lighting or plug sockets sort of within that space, just make sure you've got the infrastructure there in order to do that. Same with wall cabinets and things like that. Like, if there's certain elements that you potentially adapt and add on sort of as you're using the kitchen, you might have hinged cabinets at the bottom, because naturally they're more cost effective than drawers, and then maybe you want to add a couple of internal drawers at a later stage. That's fairly simple and easy to do, that your kitchen supplier could potentially help you with. That can just help you evolve and manage those costs.
I think to add to that, from a retailer or a designer's perspective, we tend to break it down into 3 elements when you buy a new kitchen. You have your kitchen furniture, you have your worktops, and you have your appliances. And you, as a purchaser, have to decide where you want to put the money. If you are saying to me, I'm going to live in this house for the next 20 years and I don't want to redo the kitchen furniture needs to be your priority. Make sure you get a kitchen that's going to last and going to stand the test of time. A great tip on that is, not everyone likes it, but a solid timber kitchen doesn't have to look like this. A solid timber door can be repainted. In 10 years' time, you could repaint that and look like you've had a brand new kitchen. You go and buy a real high-end German kitchen, a high-gloss kitchen, That's what colour the kitchen is for life. And once it starts to get a little bit manky, a little bit peely, you need a new one. So the kitchen furniture itself is a really good place to kind of go focus your money on. And then the appliances and the worktops can be quite flexible. You can say, well, I've got a £20,000 budget. If I want quartz, it's going to be 26, and I can't afford that right now. Okay, well, we'll put in something like a premium Formica for now. And you know what? Your financial situation in 3 or 4 years' time might change. And you might have £4,000 or £5,000 available just to upgrade the quartz. And you can do the same with the appliances as well. Appliances are quite easily changed. Don't think that I've brought this appliance for life, that's it. That combination oven there will be exactly the same size across every single kitchen appliance manufacturer. You could change that for another brand tomorrow and put it straight back in. They all work to the same apertures. So don't be scared about appliances. Don't think, well, I could buy an appliance pack now that's going to cost me maybe £3,000 because I can't afford the £9,000 appliance pack. In years to come, that might change, and you might be able to afford it then. So don't worry too much about that. So in regards to the same kind of question, really, Tom, I mean, people ask me a lot in regards to financing any kind of kitchen kind of renovation, whether it be extension or even new builds or things like that. They say, well, am I better to pay for it over a short term and just get it out of the way, or am I better to spread it for a long period? What would you advise people on that?
It depends. I'm almost repeating myself, but it depends on your personal circumstances. If it's a ground-up new build, it tends to be part of the structure, as part of the overall mortgage, because it's part of the construction of the home. And of course, the cabinets, etc., that you have a benefit of a VAT reclaim, not on the white goods, but on the cabinets. So it tends to be part of the longer term. And of course, when you get the VAT reclaim, you want to chuck it into the mortgage and bring it down. Absolutely great. Shorter term, it may simply be, and it could be an issue in relation to when I'm planning to retire.
Yeah.
Going to retire in 5 years and I want to be mortgage free. Well, let's try and get the loan down as quickly as possible. It depends on your own personal circumstances. And it might also depend on if I've got money arriving, is there money due to me in a couple of years? Have I got a tax-free cash coming from a pension? Structuring it so that when that comes, you can clear it out. It's looking holistically, not just now, but going forward, and how we can tailor it and how we can make sure it suits your circumstances. There isn't a one-size-fits-all.
Yeah. You made a good point. Did everyone know here that when you do a new build from the ground up, it is 0% VAT? Did you know that? That's why you see a lot of these houses, they get knocked down. You know those houses you drive past on your way to work every single day, and then one day it's been flattened, and you think, why didn't they renovate that? They could have renovated that. But actually, when they've crunched the numbers, they've realized by the time they get the VAT back, because it's basically kind of reclaimed, like you mentioned, it's more cost-effective to knock the thing down and build a new one. 0% VAT. Yeah. That's what a lot of people...
And the flexibility to design the house exactly the way you want it. You're not compromising on the existing structure.
It's exactly why I ended up building my own house.
Yes,
because I'm tight, like everybody else. So how important, Faye, is transparency in the designer-client relationship? So when it comes to managing budgets and expectations, how important is transparency?
It is really important. Of course, you've got to make sure you're with a trusted supplier. And I think they've got to make you feel like, you're not just being sold to, that they're really understanding sort of your needs and what you want out of that space. But I think for me, sort of working on a project or a design like yourself, like it's so important for us to know what even if it's the overall cost. So say if you're like, from a build perspective, I've got, say, a certain amount, that needs to do the whole job. It will be about, of course, looking at your kitchen design, but also then getting, an estimate from your builders, getting an estimate for your flooring, like what sort of flooring do you want to go for? And then that's how you start building, okay, what have we actually got for the kitchen? And then we can make the change and going back to your point earlier when you were like, what's, to invest in. Yeah. It might be a case of maybe you want to change your flooring, type, maybe there might be something like a cheaper, more cost-effective material that you can choose for a certain side of it, but then you can then pump that into the quality of the furniture. So I'd say, I know from our perspective, it's so good to have that transparent relationship from designer to client, just so, again, we can just help you manage the overall sort of decision making, but also the overall renovation costs.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to add to that, I think in regards to the expectation versus reality, transparency is absolute key. You've got to be 100% sure on how much you want to spend and what you want to spend it on, and line all of your ducks up. Make sure they're all in a row so you know exactly what's good. Even down to how many skips do you think this is going to take?
Yeah.
A good skip now is 350 quid. And you could look at a kitchen and go, well, there's one skip's worth. And then that wall, that's another skip. And then I've got to do, so I'm £1,000 on skips already, which people haven't budgeted in. So I'm a bit of a spreadsheet geek. I'm a bit of an Excel guy, and I build the spreadsheets, and my wife comes along and puts something, and I go, that doesn't belong there. Take it out. It's not welcome. So I thoroughly recommend that. But from your perspective, Tom, transparency, I suppose, from in the financial world, I'm guessing it's quite easy because you're showing people fixed
Regulated.
products.
Yeah, it's a regulated process.
Regulated, of
and
course.
that's the key. So the transparency in terms of documentation, where you receive everything in writing, you see the cost, the APR, the fees, the monthly payment, any exit penalties that are applicable, everything's really detailed. So that transparency will, from a financial point of view, is really important. And I want to pick up on, you'd asked earlier about the sort of top tip thing. When I think back to my own design process, we were taking a compartmentalised back third of a house into an open plan kitchen dining area, which I said has transformed it. The professionals that I was speaking to about it varied wildly in terms of, one would say, I wouldn't knock any walls down, I'd just keep your small kitchen because your dining room's lovely.
Yeah.
I sensed he was just wanting a quick sale on the kitchen and didn't want to wait till my construction project was ended. But I did believe what I was doing was right, and until the day I sat and I knew the minute I was working with professionals that they knew exactly what they were doing. And to the point where they looked at an original design and said, actually, that didn't work. If you'd opened that door, that would have given you a problem when you came to do this.
Great point.
And I knew it was working. And literally, as we finalised the design, they said, have you thought of contrasting? And I said, what do you mean? And he clicked a button, and my wife went, that's exactly what I want.
Yeah.
And that was the difference for working with people that are pretty general, I suppose, what they do, and working with professional designers.
Yeah. And the point of working with professional designers is this. Remember, you've got to kiss a few frogs before you find that Prince Charming. You really have. So if you sit down with the designer and it's your first design appointment, your first what we call a discovery session, and you don't like the guy or you don't like the girl, go on to the next one, because you're going to have a good relationship with them. I don't do design in sales on a day-to-day basis now. I'm in a lucky position. I kind of cherry-pick my clients. Go, I like the look of them. I'll work with them. But my designers, I see them on a daily basis, taking several phone calls from the same client on a daily basis because they just need this information. And that if you haven't got a good relationship and that designer's not willing to get back to you or be open and honest and transparent, or just that spark, just that, I like him, or I like her, she knows what she's doing, I really got on with her, I want to use that company. It's really important. So please don't just go to the first 3 or 4 and think, oh, I didn't like any of them, forget this. Maybe that 4th or 5th one is the one that you go, I love her. She was amazing. Very important.
Because my wife and I see the world very differently, and that's pretty normal. Anne works.
I'm getting that.
I'm
getting that vibe.
Anne's head works in processes, and unusually for the numbers guy, I definitely am very visual, and couldn't visualize it. And she's saying, I can't commit to this big spend. I was really fortunate that I worked with an architect because we needed an architect in terms of planning. And I said, it's quite easy. Bring Anne up to the office. And I provided all the details of her kitchen. And he put a set of VR goggles on. And she walked through the house when it was finished, before we even kicked off. And she took them off and said, let's get on with this. That's exactly what I'm looking for.
100%.
And that was working, again, that professional team, the architect unlocked it for me as part of that professional team to allow the kitchen to work.
It just makes all the difference, right? Yeah. Just the small little bits and pieces. Yeah. Okay, so are you finding that clients are becoming, it's been tough for 3 or 4 years. People have been losing jobs. Wages haven't been increasing. It's tight, right? So are you finding that clients are more open to a staged renovation in the sense of, listen, this is the year we're going to do the kitchen, bedroom, bathroom, and the garden. I can't wait. And then reality hits. So are you finding that talking to clients that they're now happy to do it in stages?
Yeah, so I find that the kitchen's always the last room. I don't know whether you think the same. It's either the first room when you first move in, or it's the last room. You just pretty much get everything else renovated, because usually the biggest investment is the kitchen space. That's always what I find. And I think, just repeat your question again to me, sorry, about
So our clients, are they more open to the fact that, do you know what, we're going to
Yeah.
have to do this in stages
Yeah.
rather than going all in? So I'll go back 5 years. I would speak to a lot of clients and they would say, I am doing the kitchen, the bedroom, the bathroom, we're having new flooring and we're having a new patio. And then we're going to go, right, okay, that's going to cost you about 100 grand. So they just stop the whole thing. They don't do anything. They wait until they've got 100 grand in 5 years' time and then they do it. But I think now maybe there's a conversation to be had, well, actually, I've got 30 now, so I might just do this. And then I'm going to finance the rest, or I'll wait. So are you finding that with your clients?
Yeah, I think, as I said, I think the kitchen, as I said, is like the largest investment. So I think, and if it's not working for you, it should be seen as a good investment, you know. And I think there's wants, isn't there? Like, there's must-haves and wants, as you mentioned earlier. So if you're looking at doing the patio, usually you do still get the kitchen space sorted. And then I've worked with clients that are like, actually, I'd love banquette seating, which is what we mentioned earlier, but we've staged it enough so that if they ever wanted to add banquette seating on the back of their peninsula, they've then got the infrastructure in order to do that.
Yeah.
And I remember speaking with a tech guy about all of the sort of, you know, the lighting and how everything sort of integrates together. And it's about forward thinking. And you can do that with your kitchen as well. So if it's a case of you've got your main kitchen space together, but then you're looking at potentially adding furniture maybe onto the kitchen larder systems or into different areas of the room as well, having your lighting channels and things ready there behind the wall is just, like, you know, really important from that perspective. But I wouldn't say that. I think the thing with kitchens is you do pretty much have to do it all in one go, don't you? Especially because the biggest part of the cost of it is the furniture usually.
Yeah.
But you are right about worktops, what you said. So that's something that you could change potentially afterwards.
Be staged, yeah,
So
absolutely.
that could be staged. Add in sort of the cabinets, as we mentioned as well, you know, at different stages. And as we said, working with a trusted design team who's open to that communication and doesn't see that as a hassle. Like, we've got to be as transparent to you guys as you are to us about everything in order for that trust relationship to build.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think that's what sort of my take and my sort of experience with clients is, or they just delay it and then they know they've got the people in place. You know, you've built your team, your trusted team around you for when you are ready.
Yeah,
That's what I find.
Yeah. We're the same as well. So Tom, I have a question for you. Yeah. You're the money guy. Where do you sit with people when you talk to them and you kind of they go, well, I'm having this done to the house, and you have to have a conversation about how much it's going to add on, added value, you know, versus budget for what's going to be spent. So how do you tackle those conversations?
Yeah, there's there are some clients actually don't care.
Don't care on what it's worth.
It does to the end. They might be sitting in an unencumbered house or a house with a small mortgage.
Yeah.
If clients spending £150,000 on a kitchen because they want that kitchen and they can afford to do it.
Great.
So it's not a financial thing. It's having exactly what they want, and they may have the means to do that, and that's all that's important. Understanding what it does to the value is probably not truly known. Local estate agents might know the market and can give you a comparable to a house that's had it done. But Chartered Institute valuers, when it's a more significant renovation or extension work, when we're placing the funding with the lender, they'll send out a Chartered Institute valuer. They tell us the current value of the house, and they tell us the end value of the house when the work's completed, because the lending, of course, has been underpinned against that new end value.
Again, because it's regulated.
Yeah,
It
there is a
has to
charter
be, yeah.
process.
Yeah.
If it's not related to borrowing, then quite often it's the client seeing the kitchen as the most important thing in their house and getting exactly what, I mean, 150,000. It would need to come with James Martin to cook me 3 meals a day for the rest of my life. But I can see that some of it is
Easily done.
just spectacular.
Yeah, easily done.
And equally, just to add to that, if you are sort of in a position where maybe you've got your, you know, it's coming out higher than what you're hoping to spend to your, like what I find with clients is they put what they want to spend on it and then just finance sort of the top up part of it.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's more your topic, but that's what I find from a client perspective. If it is as an overall, it does just come higher, which usually does happen because
Yeah.
you're like, oh, I love, the crystal windows, which are just so expensive, aren't they? Things like that. Things do just creep up. But if it is your forever home, or, it is an investment or a space that you want to be in for 5, 10, 15 years, it's that value of your sort of investment for yourself, really. And some would see that as, again, worth it. Maybe not 150,000 in
No,
your
I know,
house.
but it's about that understanding that you can borrow above the current value of the house to get you to the new end. But that allows you to design something far more aspirational. And you may think that you've got a budget that's limiting your kitchen design. And the reality is, when you take advice, you might be able to achieve something far, far better.
Good. Right, last question. And then we'll have, there might be some questions in the audience. We'll see. We'll force some out. We'll send you in there, Faye.
Yeah, I'll go in. They all answered my questions last time, didn't they?
Somebody asked me this. Somebody asked me this question, so I stole it from a podcast I
perfect.
did for a KBB review. Do you think, and it's a question for both of you from a design and a finance, do you think that the gap is widening from a client's perspective between expectation versus reality? Do you think that gap's getting bigger? Or do you think actually it's getting smaller? So we talked about earlier people living on Instagram and TikTok and seeing these things and seeing what they think they can achieve. Is it becoming harder to manage clients from a kitchen design perspective from when they come to you for their finance on an extension or a new build?
Yeah.
Faye, you can go first.
I think, yes. I think, as you say, you see it on TikTok, Pinterest, and you're like, oh my God, I really want this amazing kitchen. It's got loads of detail on. It's about, 200 grand. And you're like, yes, that's the kitchen that I want. But I think your supplier is obviously going to govern sort of the choices that are available with that. But equally, there are still great suppliers out there that you're not having to spend, and pay the world for, but you can still achieve, certain elements from that kitchen design.
Yeah.
And that there are more, like, whether you're taking the DIY route and you want to get really hands-on, like doing your own tiling, like putting your own floor down, that sort of thing, or if it's a case of you just want to take a few of the clever elements from that. I am finding now that from a kitchen industry as a whole, there's so much choice now, even with sort of what I would consider sort of the big boys, so similar to like your Howdens here. There's far more choice than just like the white glass door where it used to be. Like your independents, you mentioned KBSA earlier, that's a sort of an institute for independent kitchen companies, and they offer great value. And I get it so many times where clients are like, I haven't walked into that showroom because I just don't think I can afford it. And it's such a shame. And I think they want your business, like they're an independent supplier, they work off recommends, that sort of thing. So, it's all about going in and being like, I absolutely love this kitchen, like what can I get for this price point? Because the cabs will be the cabs. Obviously, the more cabinets that you buy, the more it's going to be. But if you can have fewer cabinets that work smarter, then you're not having it might sort of even out from a furniture perspective, but then actually from an installation cost, you're not having to pay as much from that perspective.
Yeah.
So it's knowing sort of these little tricks of the trade, like who to go to, and giving you guys as clients confidence in your decision making with that and direction, that really works.
Good. Tom, the same question to you, really. When clients come to sit with you and go, we want this extension, or we're going to have this amazing new build, are their expectations going, do they go racing ahead and you have to bring them back, or are they realistic? What are you finding?
Well, it can be. The problem is that over the last 3 years, we've went through a fairly unprecedented situation in terms of plasterboard going from £9 a board to £21 a board.
Yeah.
Timber going up by 50%. It seemed like every material that we needed was going up. The good news is things seem to have come back to some normality again. It might go back to your earlier question of people putting things off.
Yeah.
I think we're now starting to not put things off as much. Yeah. There's a perception for some of our clients that they still think they can build at £1,500 a square metre. No, you can't. Yeah. Because professions, their costs have gone up. So I think it's part of that process again, starting with the budget. And when you have the budget clear, you'll then know what you can design and spend. And I would say, if you know what your budget is, please tell these people what the budget is. I have it on new build. I won't tell my architect that I've got £1 million to spend because they'll just spend it.
Oh.
I'll tell them you want to spend £800,000. Just be honest and transparent. That's the key thing, the word here, all the way through. It's transparency. Share the information from your financials to your specialists, and the project will run smoother.
Yeah. And going back to one of the earlier points, when you find that designer that you're comfortable with, that person you're happy to do this whole process with, you'll find that you want to be honest and transparent.
Yeah.
You'll find you go, actually, this guy or girl's not trying to rip me off. They're not trying to rob me. I will tell them I've got a certain amount of money to spend. Good, good. Guys, have we got any questions for the expert panel? We have 2 questions. And we have a roaming mic. Thank you very much. So, I'll go to you first. The mic has to go very close to your mouth, okay? You can go first. There you go.
Mine are pretty stupid questions, really. So.
No stupid questions. No such thing.
Just want to go back to you say you can add things later on.
Yeah.
So if you put a new kitchen in, you just had a bog standard worktop, spent all the money on the appliances and the cabinets, made it look fantastic. And then later you wanted a granite worktop on to top it up.
Yeah.
Would the structure of the kitchen need to be different to carry that sort of weight, or is the weight just covered across the whole of the unit?
I would say it'd be fine. The things to think about would be, so say if you're putting on a 39mm laminate, say if you've got that and then you're replacing that with a 30mm quartz, naturally if you've got a section like this where you've got your end panels either side and there's a 10mm, even just a 10mm differentiation on the side, you'll see that going round. But I think if it's like this system, for instance, like taking it off this, again, if you've gone for good quality cabinets, because the solid surface is heavy enough to sort of, withstand the weight, they only put a quick seal around it usually, don't they?
They do, yeah.
So it is easy to change that at a later stage if you want to.
It's a great question, but to answer it from a technical perspective, actually, the manufacturer, whether it's quartz or granite, it's their responsibility to find out that when the laminate worktops have been removed, is the substructure strong enough to withhold them? Because they're giving you the warranty. So it's there. We do this for some clients before, and what we say to our quartz and granite suppliers is, guys, this is on you. Go and assess the job, go and survey it. If you say to us it's not strong enough, we'll fix it. You go and survey it again. The second you say it's strong enough, go and fit it. Any problems then, it goes back to them.
Yeah.
How do you fix it?
So they would support it from underneath. Essentially, so if you had a laminate worktop on here, for example, that little back piece of worktop across the back there is very small. So if it was laminate, there's probably not a batten under there. It's probably not one needed because it's only very small. But if you remove that laminate surface and it's exposed, the quartz manufacturer might say, listen, I need some extra support going across that wall just to give it some extra kind of strength. Yeah. Does that make sense? So it's kind of, as a retailer and a designer, we kind of pass the buck and go, listen, we'll price it, but the people who are installing it, it's their responsibility. Yeah. Okay? Good. You, sir, you may ask the question.
Never having worked with a kitchen designer before, if, in terms of budget, if a client comes to you and says, oh, I've bought, because I like taps and I've got the work surface and I've got an oven that I like or whatever, is there a best time in the process to involve the kitchen designer? And how much problem does it give you if we turn up and say, oh, we've already bought 10 appliances? How much can you work around that?
I think it's very
Good
proactive
question.
of you if you do that, which is great. But you are absolutely right. I get clients that come in and they're like, I've already bought this. I'm so excited about it. And I want it. And it's our job to incorporate that within the space. I suppose the only sort of element from our perspective that might be difficult is if we change the design slightly. So, for instance, I'm working with a client at the moment that's invested thousands of pounds into a huge Everhot, but we're now completely changing the kitchen from one side of the space that they refurbished to the other side. So naturally that doesn't fit in that space as well, but equally we're working with it. So it's just then having that conversation. And I think from an appliance perspective, when you're saying about sort of like times of years, I think, look out for like Black Friday sales, like be really savvy from that perspective. Look and go to your retailer and see if there's the cashback scenario that I mentioned, and things like that. So sometimes it is good to wait till you've got that sort of designer in place and then you can make your choices sort of from there. And I think getting a designer on board as early as possible it gives you time. And it shouldn't feel like a pressure. Like if you're getting on board early and they're trying to close you at that point, that shouldn't be how it is. Like, it's allowing you to really think about what you need and then seeing how we can like work together to incorporate those key elements that you've already been proactive and bought. That's what I'd probably say to that.
That was a really nice answer. I'm going to be bad cop. Okay? Good cop.
Yeah.
Bad cop. Don't buy on impulse. Don't go, oh, that oven's in the sale. I'm going to buy it because we're doing the kitchen next year. It's just a nightmare for designers. It really is. Appliance manufacturers chop and change their range all the time. So you say, well, listen, I brought this Smeg oven last year. And it's an amazing oven, and I love it. But now I'm having my kitchen done, and I want my combination microwave to match it. And we go, they don't make them anymore. They've stopped making them. Yeah. So that Smeg oven you've got to sell it now somewhere else, and then go buy a different Smeg oven. So to answer your question directly, it's a nightmare. It is a nightmare. When clients come to us and say, oh, we can't wait to have the new kitchen designed. We've brought our fridge. We've brought our freezer, and we have an oven and a hob, and we don't mind, that's fine. But then you lay them all out and you go, this is a nightmare. This is nothing like the brief you've just talked to me about. So equally as well, you would be pleasantly surprised how well priced appliances are through retailers, independent retailers, and also, big chains. Yeah. Of course, they sell appliances as well. But you'll be pleasantly surprised because actually, over the past 10 years, the margins on appliances have been squeezed so much because of this thing called the internet, where I could give you the appliance code and say, listen, I've supplied this oven for this amount, and it's this product code. And what do? You go home and you Google it. Or most people now ask ChatGPT, can you find this cheaper? And ChatGPT finds it cheaper for you. So actually, we have to be really conscious on pricing. Very rarely do we, across both of the businesses that I run, very rarely do we sell a kitchen without appliances. Very rarely, simply because our prices are pretty much the same as online. Okay, so don't do it. Stop buying appliances before you've spoken to an expert designer. Absolutely, slap on the wrist.
I've bought a JCB because I'm going to build a house next year.
Exactly. And the builder turns up and says, I can't drive that. Right, any other questions, guys? One more here. There you go.
This isn't kitchen related. It's regarding the self-built house and no VAT. So does that include the tradesmen as well, or do you go to the build?
They should zero rate their quote.
Oh, really?
Tradespeople, yeah.
Yeah.
There's two big tax breaks on the self-build. Is you only pay the stamp duty on the purchase price of the plot, not the end value of the house, and then you have your VAT exemption because it's zero rated. Two significant benefits, and two very good reasons why more of us should build our own.
Yeah.
It depends on who's paying for them. So if the contractor's buying it, you should zero rate it. If you're buying them, like your kitchen, your units, you'll make a submission to the Inland Revenue. And it's now online very recently, and you get your VAT reclaim on completion. Yeah.
How long are?
I think it's 90 days, and the rules change every now and again. You only get one crack at it.
Yeah, you do get one shot. It's a lot quicker than it used to be.
Yes,
it's a lot quicker than it used to be.
Because they've gone online.
Yeah, and just on that, on our final point, if you are doing a self-build and it's a new build and you're talking about 0% VAT, 0% VAT, specifically talking about kitchens, the appliances
don't count.
They don't count. I know, people fall for that trap a lot. The appliances are not zero-rated VAT because Mr. Heat MRC says, no, we'll have a bit of VAT off those for no reason at all. It's genuinely one of those things.
They say it's removable, don't they? Even though you don't remove them.
Of course they do, because you're going to take this, aren't you?
You're going to take all of it with you, exactly.
It's a daft loophole, and actually we're trying to close it. We're trying. There's some talks with the KBSA. We're trying to get that sorted from a kitchen perspective. But listen, we don't have any more time for any more questions because we've got our last session in 5 minutes. And so can I please ask you to not raise your hands for any more questions, but to use them to clap our panel. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Enjoy the rest of the show. Take care.
Thank you.
So that's it for this episode. I hope you found all of the top tips that we've spoken about really useful and you're going to start adding those into your project. As I always say at the end of every episode, if you have any sort of topics that you want us to discuss on the show, engage with us, let us know what it is that you want us to cover so that we can make sure that this podcast is continuing to educate you and to help you with your overall kitchen project. Alternatively, if you do want to work with a designer, I'm a freelance kitchen and bedroom designer and I work with clients all over the UK, whether that's in person or remotely, and I would love to help you with your projects. How you can work with me is visit my website, which is www.fayenewmandesign.com, and book a 20-minute discovery call, which is free of charge, and it's just to for me to understand more about your project and how I can help, and also to go over my design packages. So again, I hope it's been helpful, and we'll catch you next time.